What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Dynasty, brought to you by the League FFB. Today, it is finally getting to that point in the offseason where we're finally getting some of these news pieces coming out, these little hype pieces, or whatever you want to call them at this point, because we are now into the voluntary workout time. We're into the OTAs. We're getting into all of that stuff where we finally get to see these guys throw on the jersey, get back on the practice field, and give us something to talk about that isn't just the 2024 rookie draft and where we think these players are going. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be talking about 7 storylines out of the first week of OTAs that we're following for Dynasty Fantasy Football. We think these are important storylines or interesting storylines that you should be keeping an eye on. So without wasting any more time, you already know we can't do an episode of Let's Talk Dynasty without my co-host. So let's bring MFGDs into the building and let's start talking about some of these storylines.
OTAs, the O in OTA stands for overreaction. That's
Overreact.
how I'm gonna kick it. That's how I'm gonna kick it off.
Fair enough. Well, look, man, I don't feel like we should really waste any time. We can hop right into the first story, and that story is going to be the story that is on the thumbnail. So if you clicked on this thumbnail and it says Caleb Williams is a bust, and you're like, what the hell? These guys over here at Let's Talk Dynasty have been telling us that Caleb Williams is a stud all off season long. Well, this is why. Right now, we had a storyline come out from the Athletics' John Greenberg. He is reporting that Caleb Williams and the Bears offense has struggled during OTAs. And now they've said passes are hitting the grounds. They're having difficulty getting set for plays. There's pressure, really a whole bunch of near interceptions, all this other stuff that they're saying is happening in these Bear OTAs. And it's kind of sparking the question where people are thinking, is Caleb Williams going to struggle? Is he going to be a bust? Is this a complete overreaction, or is this something that is valid, War?
People like to engage in collective ignorance or collective stupidity, selective, not collective, select, because they know damn well that this is like the first week of OTAs for a rookie. Take Caleb out of any rookie, and people be like, "Oh well, that's not what Jaden Daniels is doing." Yada 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 yada. Right? It doesn't matter. Like Jaden Daniels is going to have a bad week while Caleb Williams has a good week. There's going to be weeks where Drake May looks like the best pick out of it's OTA. Not only is it OTAs, it's the beginning of OTAs. I'm not even going to just waste time like getting in depth into it. Like, oh yeah, the Bears have an ascending defense, and that's why. No, it's just simply OTAs. Like when you first go to a class, and I know this doesn't apply to anybody because some people are just the life of the party and they're a treat as soon as they walk in the room. But you go to a new class, you see all these new students around, you sit by yourself. You don't just go in class like, hey man, what's up, dog? What's up, dog? Like, I mean, some people do that and it's weird to me, but it's the same thing. Caleb is just getting on the team, just getting to know these guys. Yeah, he's had a few throwing sessions here and there. Let's talk about who did those passes hit the ground to. Did they elaborate about that? Because I can tell you right now, it wasn't Rome Odunze because he has a hammy, and it wasn't Keenan Allen because he has some family stuff to deal with on the West Coast. So that's, I mean, I'm not going to say that's the only reason that the offense was having a rough day, but I'm talking about who's left. Velus Jones. Like, come on, bro. Like, it's just ridiculous. And I think you're seeing the ugly side of multiple fronts here. You have the people who never wanted Justin Fields to get traded from the Bears. They just couldn't wait till Caleb had a rough practice. See, I told you, man. I told you, Justin Fields, JF1, him. Like, no. Like, no. Then you get the people who are like, see, I told you Caleb's a bust, but I'm secretly mad because we weren't in position to draft him. So they're just going to call him a bust the whole time. More like, they have deeper personal issues where they have an issue with what he's doing with his fingernails, which is irrelevant. So you have a couple of classes of people who just are waiting for Caleb Williams to fail. I do kind of blame, and I know it's their job, I do kind of blame Chicago media. They're horrible in a lot of aspects where they jump right in and report and overreact to everything, and they hype up the fan base and galvanize them to like worry about stuff. And I feel like that's kind of what's happening here because they should have put a quote after the article title and said, Caleb Williams had a rough day at the first week of OTAs. Who cares? That's what they should have put.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, man. I think really the big thing that I would say is it feels a lot like, and I'm not gonna look, we can't dismiss if he goes out and he has a whole off season where he looks bad, and he goes and has a first year of his career where he looks bad, and maybe we can have
Yeah,
some conversations about this shit. But it does feel like a massive overreaction, and it does feel like a lot of people are waiting for the reason to hate on Caleb Williams, because it does seem that is the thing that people want to do. Like you said, you've mentioned the fingernails, you've mentioned, some people have an issue with the confidence, the cockiness that he walks with. Some people have an
yeah,
issue with just Caleb Williams in general because Caleb Williams is Caleb Williams. And like you said, it's seems a lot like people were just waiting for that first little reason, that first little piece of any type of evidence, whether valid or not, that they could go in and say Caleb Williams is a bust. See, I told you, he's not going to be the guy that you think he is, and this is why everybody knows that Caleb Williams was a bad pick. He messed up, blah, 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 blah. It just, I don't agree with it. Again, if this is going to cause any type of sentiment, any type of reaction in your leagues, in your dynasty leagues, where you can go in and buy a Caleb Williams because people are saying he's going to be a bust, he's struggling, yada, 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 go ahead and do it, man. Because I remember a time 2, 3 years ago where Jamar Chase forgot how to catch a football. He didn't know how
mhm,
to catch a football coming into the NFL, and everybody was saying he's a bust and he's not going to be a good wide receiver because he took a year off, and now all of a sudden he's struggling at the NFL level. Jamar Chase is pretty damn good. I think it worked out pretty well for him. And even last offseason, like there was some news articles about Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice was struggling in Chiefs camp and he wasn't looking good on the field. And then he goes out and has a great year for the Kansas City Chiefs as a rookie. Like I
yeah.
just think we wait all offseason to get our eyes on these players in an NFL uniform. You get to OTAs, you get to rookie minicamp, you get to these little glimpses where we can finally see this happen, and it doesn't matter, good or bad, anything that happens, we're going to take it and we're going to run with it. And we'll talk about some guys that are probably getting some crazy hype that, uh, look, they might have had a good day or two, but we don't need to talk about them like that. But there's a whole lot going on. And Caleb Williams being a bust is not something that I am worried about as of today, the time of this recording, which is going to be May 25th. Not worried about it at all.
Me either. It just seems like people are bored. It's the off season. They need something to talk about, something to whine about. Um, Jamar Chase, I was going to bring up that exact example. I've heard it mentioned multiple places. It's like the same thing. Like people get bored with greatness and they find any way to nitpick it however they can. And that's what I feel like this.
Exactly. I mean, like you said, people were hating on him at USC because he showed emotion after he lost a football game. Like, look, man, it is what it is. They're going to find ways to hate him. And I hope Caleb Williams is going to be one of those guys that transforms the quarterback position or helps continue to transform the quarterback position at the NFL level. And I say that knowing that I have some Vikings jerseys in the back and he plays on a team in Chicago, but I think Caleb
Yeah.
Williams is a hell of a player, and I just am not worried about him at all. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No worry.
All right, man. Well, let's take it. I just pointed at the Vikings jerseys in the background. The second storyline I want to talk about is Justin Jefferson is reported by Adam Schefter of ESPN. He's not present for the Vikings voluntary OTAs here this last week. We all know that the contract situation for Justin Jefferson is something that has been ongoing. They are in talks. They are trying to figure out a way to make Justin Jefferson sign this contract where he is probably going to reset the wide receiver market at an all-time high, get the highest paid, probably non-quarterback contract we have ever seen. That's just my assumption. I'm not saying that with any evidence, but it has been rumored that that is what is going to happen. But are you worried at all about Justin Jefferson skipping OTAs, or do you think this has any kind of effect on the Minnesota Vikings in 2024 if he's not there this last week?
No. Like, okay, first and foremost, first thing I'll say is the Vikings should have been had this wrapped up, sold up, taken care of. I feel like many moons ago, like many videos ago, like I feel like we've talked about this before. And I've said it feels like forever ago. I told them they need to just pay him. And now he's here. Now he's not in OTAs, which there's a chance that even if they did pay him already, he still might not have gone to OTAs. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think this is a big deal at all. Obviously, they're going to pay Justin Jefferson. Obviously, he's going to reset the wide receiver market. there's like literally nothing to see here, and it's just more off-season news. But if there's any point of concern, is that they should have been had this done, but the Vikings aren't dumb enough to like let this like go on to the point where Justin Jefferson is not actually a Minnesota Viking moving forward.
I totally agree. I think, I mean, I've talked about it already on this show before, but you get Justin Jefferson. I think there have been different hurdles that have presented themselves based on the time of the year that we've been in while we've been in those negotiations. Now, also, obviously, we don't necessarily have to get that deal done this offseason. He still has 2024 where he's under contract. It's not like he can't play next year on a contract
Right.
if he doesn't sign something. So we still have time. Although, with that being said, I will say that there is a ticking clock on this. And the ticking clock is because you have wide receivers, one that has already signed a new contract and made himself the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL, named Amon-Ra St. Brown. But you also have guys like CeeDee Lamb and guys like Jamar Chase, who are also going to be looking for contracts. Brandon Aiyuk going to be looking for a contract. Top wide receivers in the NFL looking for contracts. And if you continue to wait, which in my opinion, I feel like CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson, both of those guys coming in that 2020 draft class, I feel like these guys are playing chicken with each other because whoever signs first, that gives the other guy leverage to go back to his team and say, well, look what he got. I want something similar. So
Yeah.
I think we're playing a game of chicken right now with Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb, but every day that you wait, the price might go up. That's just the risk that we're playing here for the Minnesota Vikings. Now, the reality is Justin Jefferson in the offseason, the reports were that he didn't want to sign until he saw what the long-term solution was at the quarterback position. Well, that has been fixed. We have now drafted JJ McCarthy. JJ McCarthy's there. I would like to see Justin Jefferson at OTAs because you want to give Justin Jefferson and JJ McCarthy as much time as possible to grow that bond, grow that connection, kind of get working with each other. I understand that there's business involved as well, but I'm not worried about this. Obviously, would like to see him there working with JJ McCarthy, but Justin Jefferson has never, ever shown in the entire time that he has been in Minnesota that he is not a leader, that he is not a team guy, that he doesn't care about playing football for the Minnesota Vikings. And so I trust that those things will stay true. They will get a deal done when it's time. I trust Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah to get a deal done. This just feels like a matter of when, not a matter of if for Justin Jefferson and the Vikings.
Yeah, this is going to get taken care of. No matter the road or path to it happening is going to happen. It's inevitable. Would have liked to see him in OTAs and catch a few passes from JJ McCarthy or Sam Darnold.
Both
Or
of them
Sam Darnold,
probably.
Andrew. Let's keep it a buck. But
I'm on record saying that I would like to see Darnold start games in 24.
yeah. So I mean, the question is, how does JJ feel about that? Because I remember, like towards the beginning of the off season, he was talking about how amazing it would be to play with Justin Fields. So I mean, I imagine that both of those guys should be better passers than Justin, but either way it goes, he's going to return to Minnesota, and it's really just like a foregone conclusion.
Yep. Yeah. I think we're fine there. And also part of the luxury of having a rookie quarterback means that you're not paying that rookie quarterback a lot of money, which means you can allocate a lot of money to go to Justin Jefferson's pockets while JJ McCarthy is on that rookie contract. So everything is lining up. We'll see if it takes place sometime now or sometime later, but I really wouldn't be worried about anything for 2024 unless we get to like training camp and Justin Jefferson has still not signed and he's not showing up to mandatory training camp. That's when we probably have a little bit of an issue because you get those conversations of possible holdouts, but I just don't believe they're going to let it get to that point.
Yeah, no, even then, I would think it would be more of a DEFCON 3 and not a DEFCON 5 situation.
Fair enough. All right, man. Well, let's move on to the next topic here. We are going to be talking about everybody's favorite breakout running back from 2023. We're going to talk about Kyren Williams. And Kyren Williams, he is missing the Rams' entire spring OTA program as he is dealing with a foot issue. Sean McVay says there's nothing to worry about. He should be ready to go for training camp, but there's been a little issue that he was training with and is kind of leaving him off of the field in this time. Now, the reason why I find this interesting is because during the 2024 NFL draft, the Los Angeles Rams kind of surprised a lot of people, and they took the third overall running back in the class in Blake Corum. Blake Corum obviously being one of the most talented running backs in college football over the last couple of seasons, playing with Michigan, he is going to be earning reps in OTA almost by default because Kyren Williams is not here. Now, we all know that Kyren Williams, he hasn't necessarily been the poster child for health at the running back position. He's not necessarily the biggest guy, the most durable guy. We've already heard rumors of them wanting to kind of take a lighter workload for Kyren Williams. Is this something to worry about if you roster Kyren Williams? And what does this mean for Blake Corum?
This is very unlike the last few stories. This is something to worry about if you roster Kyren Williams. First of all, you have to take it back to just where he came into the NFL as a prospect. This was not expected. He was not expected to be the lead back for the Los Angeles Rams. It was just some type of revelation, something that happened. They lucked out, they found a guy. The life of a running back in the NFL is not easy. Any injury, any setback, any contract dispute could set your career on the downward trajectory. And this could be that moment for Kyren Williams, not trying to like make it all doom and gloom here, but the fact that they drafted Blake Corum where they drafted him already kind of solidifies the identity. Even the Los Angeles Rams, as good as Kyren was last year, had some type of reservations about him being their lead back. Now he's injured. And it could be a kind of like a, see, this is why kind of situation. So now Blake Corum gets to go in there. He gets to earn the reps. His opportunity cost goes up. He goes out there. He turns heads. Next thing you know, hey, Kyren, we're in a 50-50 time split for carries. And that could easily, with Kyren Williams' stature, the draft capital they spent on him, the injury history, that could easily turn out to be very beneficial for Blake Corum.
Yeah,
So,
I
I
agree.
mean, yeah.
I mean, you look at what Blake Corum was able to do at Michigan his last couple of seasons there. 2022, he played in 12 games. He had 1,400 rushing yards and 19 total touchdowns. In 2023, 14 games, 1,100 rushing yards, 26 total touchdowns for Blake Corum there. So this is a guy who has a nose for the end zone. And there's also been another report that has come out while Kyren Williams has been missing time that Sean McVay and the Los Angeles Rams, they are working on trying to help Blake Corum develop a 3-down skill set because pass catching necessarily hasn't been one of his strongest characteristics, I think, as a prospect, but they are working on trying to get him as a better pass catcher. And this feels like they are almost preparing for the fact that, like, if Kyren Williams is ever out for any period of time, they want to go full on Blake Corum. He is the number one back in that backfield if Kyren Williams is not on the field. And these guys actually complement each other pretty well because Kyren Williams kind of a better pass catcher, Blake Corum kind of a better first and second down back with a knack for the end zone. It's going to be an interesting offseason because I really like Blake Corum as a talent. It felt like this landing spot gave him a little bit that he had to overcome if he was going to earn some role. But it's looking like he's going to get some opportunity right away. I mean, he's already getting opportunity, and I just feel like with this type of situation and the type of running back that Kyren Williams was, you mentioned it already, 5th-round running back last year, kind of found his way probably late first month of the season after they kind of got rid of the Cam Akers show because they were trying to do the Cam Akers for a while and just didn't actually pan out. But then they went fully Kyren Williams. It just does feel like a committee to me. And anytime that you give a guy like Blake Corum, as talented as Blake Corum can be, as gritty as a guy like Blake Corum is, if you give him any type of time to wow coaches, I think he's the type of back that will, and that's not good for a guy like Kyren Williams.
No, 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 not at all. And we've seen this play out so many times over several teams, over several years of football, where you have a running back in the backfield that rises up from obscurity. And we're like, see, this guy, he pulled himself up by his own bootstraps. That's how you do it. You gave it the old college try. He goes out there, we spend $500, $600 a fab on him, get him
Yep.
on a team. He turns some heads towards the middle end of the season. We go into the offseason thinking, oh, yeah, man, yeah, okay. My running back 2 spot solidified. Okay, my flex spot solidified. Next thing you know, what does the team do in the offseason? The guy rose from obscurity. Let's pick a guy from the 2nd or 3rd round. He
Yep.
comes in there. Next thing you know, you see the opportunity for the guy that the little engine that could, just slowly starts to slow down, pulls into the station for the end, the last time, and then the shiny new train pulls out, and that's it. Next thing you know, the guy's back on the waiver wire. We've seen this over and over again in fantasy football, and I would not be surprised if this happens again with Kyren Williams.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that Kyren Williams is somebody that, like, you just gotta throw away. That's not what I'm saying right now. I think he's still gonna be valuable this year. They're gonna give him every chance that they can, but it's a matter of time. How long can you hold off Blake Corum? Is Blake Corum going to wow them that much? It may never happen, but I think there's enough risk here that we've been saying it all offseason. Kyren Williams was overvalued by the community. People were really just too excited. And you said it too. Like, we've seen this story before. The James Robinsons, the Damian
Mm-hmm.
Pierces. Like, we've
Yep.
seen this. And Damian Pierce gets outsnapped by Devin Singletary down the stretch the following year. James Robinson, he finds himself bouncing from team to team to team now as I don't even know where the hell he's at. I think he's on the New Orleans Saints at this point. Like, it's
Several
just,
former Baltimore Ravens.
yeah, like this happens. And unfortunately for NFL running backs, as exciting as it can be for us on our fantasy teams when we find this late round gem that finds opportunity, the draft capital is king, the opportunity is king, and it feels like NFL teams will just rely on the first more so than the latter 90% of the time. So I don't know if Blake Corum's going to be the guy in 2024 if both of these guys are healthy, but it tells you they drafted Kyren Williams in the 5th round. They drafted Blake Corum in the 3rd round. They obviously had a higher prospect grade on Blake Corum. They viewed him as a better prospect coming out than they viewed Kyren Williams. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that is how they are as NFL players, because we've seen guys who kind of have bad draft capital. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Stephon Diggs, Tyreek Hill, guys like that. Now, we're talking about wide receivers there, but we've seen it happen. But the reality is I'm very uneasy if I have Kyren Williams anywhere, and thankfully I don't, because I just didn't like the story to begin with. But if I had Kyren Williams, I'd be nervous. If I had Blake Corum, I'd be pretty damn excited.
I agree. I think Corum has the upper edge right now.
And he has some juice, man. I really like Blake Corum. But let's move on to our next topic here. We actually kind of hinted at this earlier, but we're going to talk about Brandon Aiyuk, because Brandon Aiyuk, it is being reported on NFL Live, ESPN's Jeremy Fowler. He said that the benchmark for a Brandon Aiyuk contract extension is going to be what Amon-Ra St. Brown received. He went on to point out that St. Brown is getting $28 million per year on a new 4-year deal that he signed this offseason. He adds that Aiyuk doesn't have to be the highest paid wide receiver in the league, but he does think that he deserves to be paid like a top wide receiver. So we know that this contract kind of dispute has been going on all offseason. There was times where Brandon Aiyuk was kind of doing the whole classic wide receiver, the star wide receiver move, where he's on Twitter and he's on Instagram posting stories and all this other crap. Is this something that is way out of the range of outcomes for Brandon Aiyuk, or do you think he does deserve to be paid like one of these top wide receivers in the NFL?
No, I do not feel like he deserves to be paid like one of these top wide receivers in the NFL. I think he's rather delusional if he thinks that he should be getting anywhere close to Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's not in the same tier as Amon-Ra St. Brown. So why is he expecting the same contract as Amon-Ra St. Brown? Brandon Aiyuk, very good wide receiver. Very good, not great. So no, he should not be seeking this type of money because it's not in line with his production. It's not in line with whether or not that team needs him. Because I could make the argument right now that they could trade trade Brandon Ayuk for draft capital, not get a player in return, and that 49ers team will still be excellent. They'll still be excellent. So no, he doesn't. He doesn't deserve. Well, I'm not gonna say deserve. If he could get the money, get the money. But no, he should not be seeking or threatening to hold out for not getting Amon-Ra St. Brown's money because he's not on the same level as Amon-Ra St. Brown. So if I was the 49ers, I would not be paying him. I would let him sit there, pout, kick his legs, cry. And if it comes to it, I'll trade him, but I'm not giving him that contract.
Yeah, I just pulled up NFL contracts right now from an average annual salary of the wide receivers in the NFL. The top wide receivers just got hit with an ad. It almost blew my eardrums out. But the number one wide receiver right here is AJ Brown. AJ Brown making $32 million a year. Then you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, Devontae Smith, DK Metcalf. It feels a lot like, to me, when you get into that Devontae Smith, DK Metcalf range, like that's where Brandon Aiyuk deserves to make that money.
That's what he deserves to be.
And you could even say he probably, at this point in his career, is probably more valuable than a guy like Cooper Kupp. Probably could make more money than Cooper Kupp. Could you argue Devontae Adams or no?
No.
Okay, so that really puts him somewhere in that $25 to $28 million type of range on a per year basis, which I think would be something that Brandon Aiyuk should. And again, like you said, we don't know these guys' financials. Like, we can't really give financial advice to these guys, but it feels like if you're getting a contract in that range, that should be something that you should be fine with. I mean, I don't feel like you should be making more than AJ Brown. You shouldn't be making more than Amon-Ra. You shouldn't be making more than Tyreek Hill. Now, the reason that I think Brandon Aiyuk has a little bit of leverage is he is so good at some of the other things in the NFL that most wide receivers are not. Brandon Aiyuk he's a fantastic run blocker in this offense and in an offense that runs the football a ton. So he's
Yes.
way better than anybody in that room at that type of skill set, which does make it a little bit unique, does give him a little bit more value. The only thing that I think a lot of people are probably looking at right now in this situation and saying, okay, Brandon, what are we about to do? They just drafted a first round wide receiver in Ricky Pearsall, and he is now going to be on this team with a fifth year option. There have been the rumors of trading Deebo Samuel. There have been a whole lot of questions about this wide receiver room, but it feels like San Francisco said, yeah, we know there's questions. We'll handle that at a later date, but let's get us some insurance this offseason in Ricky Pearsall and see what we can make happen, whether it's Brandon Aiyuk and Pearsall moving forward or whether it's Deebo and Pearsall moving forward. It's going to be two of these guys, and we'll figure out what happens with the third guy later. So um, I do think that Brandon Aiyuk should be the long-term wide receiver one for San Francisco. I think he's the best wide receiver on this offense. I think he benefits this team more than a guy like Deebo Samuel. But we'll see if we make it happen. I don't know if they make it happen. We'll see. This cap situation for San Francisco isn't pretty. They are paying a lot of guys a lot of money. Kittle's getting paid. McCaffrey's getting paid. Purdy's on the verge of probably getting a contract extension here where he gets paid pretty decently. You got guys like Deebo being paid as well right now, like their offensive line, Trent Williams being paid. Lots of guys on the defense, Nick Bosa, all these other guys. There's a lot of money going around, and Brandon Aiyuk isn't making it right now, and he's saying that I need it. So we'll see.
Yeah, man, I definitely would be taking Brandon Aiyuk over Deebo Samuel. And I mean, there's no question that he is valuable to the 49ers. That can't be debated. But the fact of the matter is, he still shouldn't be making Amon-Ra St. Brown money because he's
Yeah.
not Amon-Ra St. Brown. Like,
Yeah.
that's just where I am with it. He's very important to the team. I would hope that if he offered somewhere in that range that you mentioned, if he was offered that, I would hope that he would accept that, but we'll see because does he even want to be a 49er? So, I mean,
I don't know. We'll see. Where would be some potential destinations for Brandon Ayuk that you feel like would be great landing spots for him?
honestly, I thought Pittsburgh would have been
A good
a
spot.
good landing spot for him. Their wide receiver one is what George Pickens.
Hmm.
I mean, I don't really see him as a wide receiver one, so I still think that would be a good landing spot. Green Bay, that would suck.
Interesting. Interesting. I think,
that would
I mean, obviously there's a
suck.
couple landing spots that people are going to say just because they're the popular landing spots that everybody says, but they do have need. I don't know from a financial standpoint if it makes sense because both of these teams lost wide receivers this year for cap reasons. But maybe a year from now, once those cap kind of penalties clear and cap looks a little bit better, we're looking at potentially Brandon Ayuk being Josh Allen's number one. Maybe we're
Well,
looking at Brandon Ayuk going and being Justin Herbert's number one. There's a couple different
that's a good
destinations where that
spot.
could happen. I don't know, man. It'll be interesting. I think Brandon Ayuk is good enough to be a number one wide receiver for probably 80 to 85% of the NFL rosters. I mean, if you don't have Amon-Ra, CD, Chase, Jefferson, if you don't have one of those guys, I guess Marvin Harrison Jr., we're going to put him in that conversation right now. But if you don't have one of those guys, like Brandon Ayuk might be your next best option.
I don't think the Bears need him.
No, no. But there's an argument that he could be the best wide receiver on your offense.
There's an argument.
DJ Moore or Brandon Ayuk right now, I feel like you could make that argument.
I don't know. I feel like they're in a similar tier,
Maybe,
just based from a production standpoint.
maybe.
Not so much for all overall talent or like future talent, like dynasty standpoint, but like a right now, real time standpoint, yes.
If you have Brandon Aiyuk on a dynasty roster, are you worried about a potential holdout or no?
No, I have him on my rosters and like I've rebuffed all trade increase for him, like
Are
no matter
you
what.
are you more worried about Brandon Ayuk's contract situation than you are Justin Jefferson's?
Hell yeah.
Yes, I agree. I agree.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
All right, man. Well, I think if you do have Brandon Ayuk, I'm not too worried about it, but it is something to monitor throughout the offseason because it seems like San Francisco keeps kind of putting little chess pieces in play to where they are going to have flexibility with him long term. They're not necessarily tied to him the way that some other franchises are going to be tied to their wide receivers. But let's move on to our next guy, um, guy that we've talked about a lot on the show over the last year, but we are going to be talking about Bryce Young because beat reporters, head coach Dave Canales, they're coming out. They're saying that Bryce Young is looking great. He's doing fantastic in the team's new offense and OTAs. Now, the reason why I think that this is interesting is because Dave Canales has recently kind of been deemed and tagged as this QB whisperer. You look at the last couple of years and the last couple of teams that he's worked with, Russell Wilson under Dave Canales had a career year. Then he goes and helps Geno Smith, career year, helps Baker Mayfield, career year. And now he is now in Carolina with Bryce Young, potentially a career year. I know we're only 2 years into it. It can't be much harder to get better than what Bryce Young did in 2023. But are we a little bit excited about this new look Panthers offense under Dave Canales and potentially seeing what Bryce Young could do in 2024?
Nah,
No,
nah.
I am. I am.
Look, look, look. I have the Panthers on the do not trust list. So all the fluff puff pieces coming out of OTAs. Oh, he's nearly matched the system. Oh man, Bryce Young's really out there slinging it. Like, okay, yeah. Until I see it, until I see that translate to an actual NFL game, I don't trust it. And I don't trust it because it's the Panthers saying it. They've been inept for like the last I don't know how many years, but there's hope. Andrew, there's hope. There's hope because I thought the same thing about the Texans last season.
Yeah.
They were on the do not trust list last season. I'm like, okay. And the difference is, and I want to bring it to everybody's attention to harken back to the first offseason story we talked about at the beginning of this video. Last season, they said that CJ Stroud looked horrible. They say he was looking horrible out there in the offseason. So I don't know. Maybe this is the flip side. They're saying it looks good, but I hope that Bryce Young, I'm rooting for Bryce Young to turn it around, but I have to see it on the field, man. I just don't trust Carolina. I mean, Canellis has a track record. Great. Now let's see if Bryce Young could show some improvement.
Yeah, man. I will say I am excited. And as two people and a show from last year that probably was not supporting or that was going against the grain from the rest of the community, we were pretty supportive of Baker Mayfield. We were not in the same camp of saying that Baker Mayfield was a bust, was Baker Mayfield was a bad quarterback. We were not in that camp. I remember there was a lot of Baker Mayfield love on this show last offseason.
Mm-hmm.
But I do really like Bryce Young. Obviously, I liked him as a prospect. He was still one of my favorite quarterbacks coming out of the 2023 NFL draft. He is a guy who was the number one pick. You look at the offenses that Bryce Young had last year, the coaching that Bryce Young had last year, the presumable coaching and the presumable offense that he's going to have this year, night and day. There wasn't a wide receiver like Deontay Johnson on this offense last year. There wasn't a wide
No.
receiver, as much as I think he's still a risky prospect, like Xavier Legette is on this offense last year. Adam Thielen now being in that full-time kind of slot role, or even just playing on the outside. It doesn't really matter, but he now gets to be the wide receiver 3 instead of the wide receiver 1. You have guys like JT Sanders who are going to come in and play that tight end position, who can block and who can go out there and receive the football. You have guys like Jonathan Brooks in the backfield. It is going to be a new look offense, and Dave Canales' very, very friendly offense that has helped guys in the past. We've seen career years out of guys that have been written as, I guess, guys that have been bust. Geno, Baker, all these guys. He's revived careers. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'm putting a lot of weight on Dave Canales, but I'm very excited. I think Bryce Young is somebody that I'm buying into. I've been buying into Bryce Young this offseason, especially because there was a time this offseason, probably not as much anymore. Let's check where he's at on keep trade cut at the moment. But there was a time this offseason where you could get Bryce Young as like the QB 25 on keep trade cut, QB 27 on keep trade cut. Like he was being left for dead. And it seems like right now where he's being valued is the QB 20. So he's went up, but it still puts him in a range with Bo Nix, Will Levis, Baker Mayfield, JJ McCarthy. That is kind of like the tier where it's like pick your poison. None of these guys have shown us that they are studs. So you just got to take your shot. And I don't mind if Bryce Young is your shot in that group of guys. I'm excited for your. Maybe this is me speaking as a fan of Bryce Young, but I'm excited for 2024.
There's a little fan coming out of you.
A
There's a little
little
fan.
bit.
I see it.
I like the
I
kid,
see
man.
it. I
I
mean,
can't not root for the kid, man. He's a good guy.
yeah. And I've seen you get some Bryce shares in this offseason. I've seen you pick up some Bryce shares. So I mean, like I said, I'm rooting for Bryce. I'm definitely rooting for and believe in the player more than I believe in the organization, the situation.
Okay.
So we shall see. This is a wait and see approach I'm taking here.
Yeah, for sure. What would it have to look like for Bryce Young to kind of instill some I guess some safety in the way that you view him? Like what would make you feel good about Bryce Young from a statistical standpoint? Because I look at what he did last year, and Bryce Young put together a season of 2,800 passing yards and 11 touchdowns. Obviously not great. Do you need to see him get to 3,520? Like, is that something where we need to see him get to
That's
that point?
exactly that, that's exactly the benchmark I was going to set for him. 3,500, 20 touchdowns, less than 15 touchdowns.
Less than 15 interceptions, I think. You said
And
touchdowns.
interceptions, yeah, less
All
than
right,
15
cool.
interceptions.
Yeah.
That's about where, because I mean I think that shows competency. That shows that okay, it's not Bryce's talent that caused the issue in his rookie season. It's the coaching, and then from there, we would expect top competency to turn to just being good. So
Okay. And for the record, what Baker Mayfield did last year under Canales in that career year was 4,000 passing and 28 touchdowns. So 3,520 for Bryce in year two. I think that's a good benchmark. Even if he goes above that, you feel very good about it. But I wouldn't, maybe it's a hot take. I don't know if it's a hot take at this point. You tell me, but I think Bryce Young is a more talented player than Baker Mayfield is. So that 4,028 is probably something that is in the range of outcomes for a guy like Bryce.
I mean,
Is that a hot take?
it's it is a hot take because I think that it's easy to say that with a player that's just on his second season after being drafted number one overall. We're naturally designed to think, okay, he was the number one pick for a reason. He's going to take a step. And I know Baker was also a top pick,
Number
but
one.
we've seen Baker for years now. We've seen him for years. We've seen him jumped around, and we basically have looked at Baker like, okay, as long as he's a little bit better than mid, then that's good. So it's easy to think that Bryce, is more talented and can put up better numbers, but it's a we'll see situation, man.
Yeah. I still can't get over the fact I don't think Cleveland did him right on the way out the door. And I think it's so
No.
funny how statistically last year you would have preferred Baker Mayfield over Deshaun Watson, but Baker Mayfield made
Yes.
like $5 million and Deshaun made like $50 million. So um
Yep.
whatever, man. It's funny how the cookie crumbles. But let's move on to the
Mm.
next guy. We're talking about that younger tier of quarterback. I actually just mentioned his name, but a guy that you have pumped up on the show before in our Bold Takes episode, Bo Nix, man. Broncos head coach Sean Payton said that Bo Nix is farther along than most rookies would be. He's also been competing in camp with Jarrett Stidham and Zach Wilson, but they said that he has been extremely smart. He's picking up the offense very quickly. Looks like he is going to potentially be in the running for that week one starter. I think most of us would assume that Bo Nix is going to be that week one starter, but this comes as really no surprise to me because you see it right here in the article 61 games played in college. He was deemed as one of the most NFL ready, the most pro ready quarterbacks in this class because of his experience at the collegiate level. But does this surprise you? Is this good? How do you feel about him being quote unquote farther along than most rookie quarterbacks?
Does this surprise me?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't surprise me because I've said it like I feel like I've said it the last two videos
Yeah.
that Bo Nix, you don't know Bo if you don't know that Bo gonna be good. You don't know. I already knew he was gonna be ahead. I already knew he was gonna be ahead of schedule because he's father time. I knew it. I knew it. He could see into the future. That's Sean Payton's son. His illegitimate son coming back to play quarterback for him. I knew it was gonna happen. I knew it was gonna happen. And he got his boy in the wide receiver room. I
Yep.
knew it was gonna happen. He got Jared Stidham. He got Jared Stidham wiped down, man. He got Zach wiped down. He got all of them wiped down, man. Man, don't get me started on Bo, man. I already seen this coming, man. Wait till he start throwing dots during the season. He's gonna have one of them seasons where you're gonna look at his stats there and be like, oh man, he ain't do that half bad. That's the kind of
Yeah.
season he gonna have. And he's the perfect plug and play for Sean Payton. He's the perfect game manager for Sean Payton. And you know what? He's gonna be a season long super flex spot for all your dynasty teams who drafted him. So
Yeah. I mean,
I'm
look,
at.
dude, he was coming off the board in our rookie drafts for most people as like the QB6. Most of the time, people were able to get him in the second round. And it feels like he's just been a value that is probably going to sustain it and kind of hold at that value that he's been at. And we were actually talking about this on a BDGE video lately. This one's actually going to come out before that video comes out. But I brought up the conversation about Bo Nix, and I said it felt like to me that there really wasn't room for his value moving forward in the dynasty market to really dip, because right now I told you about that tier that he's being valued in. He is the quarterback 21. He's in that tier with Will Levis, Baker Mayfield, Michael Penix, Kirk Cousins. Like, this is kind of the tier that he's in. If he goes out and he has a mediocre year, I think most people will be like, well, yeah, he was the QB6 in our rookie drafts. We aren't really expecting him to come out and light the world on fire. And I feel like his value kind of will sit at the same spot still. He could go in next year still in like QB 21. But if he goes out and he's somewhat impressive and has a decent year, is he in the conversation where we're talking about him in the same breath as guys like Jared Goff? Like, could we be thinking about him in that kind of aspect?
No. And the reason I say no is because we're not even, correct me if I'm wrong, we're not even really looking at Caleb Williams in that same area as Jared Goff, are we? Like in terms of like production or in terms of fantasy value?
Oh, I'm talking in terms of dynasty value because,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. Because
yeah, hell yeah,
I was going to
hell
say, because
yeah.
Caleb Williams' dynasty value right now, like, we're talking about Caleb in the same breath as like Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert. Like, that's where we're talking about
Okay,
it.
okay. Yeah, no, yeah, he definitely can get Golf if we're talking about that. I could see him in that type of value. Um, I was able to get him in the league for pennies on a dollar. I think like it's a lot of people still sleeping on Bo Nix.
Yep.
So, and I think they're gonna get a rude awakening because I don't know, man. He just strikes me as because, like, full disclosure, me and Andrew were like making fun of Bo Nix early in the offseason because we see some guy's video. I don't remember his name, so he shouldn't feel any kind of way. We seen some kind of guy's video on YouTube. He was like saying that Bo Nix was the best quarterback in the draft
Yeah,
based on
yeah.
these numbers that he was spouting off about, and we just kind of had a good laugh at it. But there's one point that he made that stuck out to me. Bo Nix he's just like this perfect God game manager. Okay, Caleb, Jaden, Drake May, JJ McCarthy. I guess if you had to like compare them, Bo Nix and JJ McCarthy were both kind of like, and you can correct me because this is your guy, like game managery. But in the sense that those other three guys have all the physical tools, the physical traits, the arm talent, all that stuff to like go out there and be special quarterbacks. JJ and Bo Nix were more of those like cerebral, like just being accurate, connecting the dots out there. But I think obviously, I think JJ has more arm talent and everything than Bo Nix. But
That's what I was gonna get at. Go ahead.
I feel like Bo Nix is just the perfect puppet for Sean Payton.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna get at, because I was gonna say the difference between a guy like JJ McCarthy and a guy like Bo Nix is that you see flashes of that extra physical potential from a guy like JJ McCarthy. He does have some rushing upside. He used his legs a little bit in college. He does have a little bit more of a special arm than a guy like Bo Nix has, like where he can kind of unload that and unleash that at times. And you're kind of betting on developing those elite traits out of him rather
Yeah.
than guys like Jaden or guys like Caleb who have the elite traits already.
Mhm.
But that's the difference. I don't think Bo Nix has like elite traits. If you want to say that his accuracy is, really, really good, I would agree with you that he has really good accuracy. But is that an elite trait for him? It's his best trait. I don't know if it's
Mhm.
elite, but Sean Payton has never really needed a quarterback that. I mean, Drew Brees. Can we really say that there was an elite trait to Drew Brees? Like, I don't think he was a. I don't think he was like a elite.
Cerebral.
Yeah,
And
like I
like
don't. And I say this like without trying to be disrespectful to Drew Brees because Drew Brees is a Hall of Famer. Like he's one of the best quarterbacks we've ever watched. Like it's just there was nothing that you could put Drew Brees, stand him side by side with Aaron Rodgers, stand him side by side with a guy like Tom Brady, stand him side by side with a guy like Pat Mahomes, and you see the elite talents that those other guys have. And it's like Drew Brees, you're really good at everything, but you're not like elite at anything. But you've been
Mhm.
really good because you've been in the right situation. You have the right coach. I'm sure we're going to piss off some Saints fans. We got some Saints fans that watch the show and they love the stuff, but uh, it is what it is, man. But I think Bo Nix fits that mold. He is that Drew Brees esque type of quarterback. We've said this multiple times. It seems like a lazy comparison because Sean Payton, but it is what he wants out of a quarterback, and I think Bo Nix can do that. Does this surprise me? To get back to the original question, not really. I think he also is in a quarterback room where you're competing with Zach Wilson and Jarrett Stidham. So of course you look good. Of course you look good
Yeah.
against those guys. Those guys do not look good in any room that you put them in. So
No.
I guess that's the only chance. I mean, I guess maybe Zach Wilson looks good in a room full of Cougars because they all probably want him. But other than that, like we're probably that's the only room that Zach Wilson looks good in. So that is that. I'm not surprised by this Bo Nix thing, man.
Yeah, man. No, and when I think of Bo Nix, it's just like I said, he's just like he's a perfect puppet for Sean Payton, man. Like what we can say, if somebody told me that okay, Bo Nix might be the smartest player in the draft, I'd be like, okay. I mean, you don't got the traits, but if they want to say he's the smartest quarterback in the draft and he can dominate you with his mind, then okay, I could kind of see it. I could kind of
Well,
see it.
and like you said, when we were talking Bryce Young, at this point in time, every quarterback's coach thinks that their quarterback is a smart quarterback, is the right quarterback. They're looking impressive. No coach is going to tell you that their quarterback looks like shit, especially after they drafted him in the top 12. Nobody's doing that.
Do you think Bo Nix can be Tua?
If he can be Tua, you feel very good about what Bo Nix is as a
Yes.
dynasty asset.
Yes.
But I think
Yeah.
that would be like a ceiling for
Me too.
Bo Nix. I don't know. I'm
If
not.
he was a healthy Tua, I think that would be a great ceiling for him being a healthy Tua.
Yeah, I mean, you put him in the right system. If he can follow that Brock Purdy, that Tua Tagovailoa type of trajectory, like you feel
Mhm.
very good about what Bo Nix is. But anything more than that, that you probably have unrealistic expectations. Like if you think this
Asking for
guy's
too
gonna
much.
be, if you think he's gonna be like Joe Burrow, come on, man. It's just not. It's not gonna happen.
He's not going to be Drew Brees either, even though playing for Sean Payton.
Yeah, it is what it is. Also, the room still. I know you said he has his boy Troy Franklin. There's a lot of work that needs to be done on this offense still. And
Mhm.
Sean Payton, he's kind of a messy son of a bitch. Like he's out here
Mhm.
already talking about like the running back room with Blake Watson, Javante Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin, Samaje Perine, Audric Estime. It's a big competition. Somebody's going to be the guy, and he doesn't know who it is. It's like, all right, dude, come on. Like he's a messy son of a bitch, and he's going to make something happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
But let's move on to our last one. We kind of hit it off with three quarterbacks here at the end of the show, but former adoration from your end. Let's talk about Justin Fields. Steelers quarterback Justin Fields says that he is nowhere near his ceiling. And in a similar little hype piece that we got lately, Justin Fields also was talking and saying that he felt like he was competing for the starting job here with Russell Wilson to go into week one. Feels like Justin Fields, and I say this without trying to sound like a hater, but it feels like Justin Fields is feeling himself here in this black and gold now for the Pittsburgh Steelers. What do you think about this take of his saying he's not near his ceiling and he is competing for the starting job?
Man, Justin Fields has had a very interesting offseason, hasn't he?
Yeah.
He's gotten traded. You had Jalen Warren talking about he might be the kick returner. You had this report come out of Chicago saying that he was texting on Instagram while Nick Foles was trying to talk to him and teach him stuff. And then Nick Foles gave up on it. Him and Nick Foles hate each other's guts. Because, I mean, who would hate Nick Foles of all people? It just seems like the most, like, godliest, nicest guy. But, you know, who
I hate
knows? I mean,
he beat us in an NFC championship that took away a chance for me to see my Vikings in a Super Bowl, man.
you know what, Andrew? He beat us too, okay? He
Fair
beat
enough.
us too. Damn double doink. Okay. So sometimes we just gotta let stuff go. Justin. Okay, first and foremost, this is the absolute way Justin Fields should approach it. He should approach it like, you know, he wants starting for please, Justin, please get the starting job so we can get the 4th round pick from you guys. Um I think he has the right confidence. And you've expressed this to me before. You have often felt like Justin Fields has been feeling himself too much on multiple occasions. And I can't blame you for feeling like this is another one of those occasions, but he should have this mindset. Um, yes, there probably is a lot of untapped potential in Justin Fields, but it all comes down to whether or not he can even get his passing to get to like average. If his passing gets to average, if he can get to a place where he can because keep in mind, everyone, Justin has not yet passed for 3,000 yards. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure.
I
As a
was
Bears fan, I know this information to be accurate.
I was
He has
just
not
looking that
passed
up.
for 300 yards.
His best
So
passing season was 25-60.
yeah, see, and that's just not going to get it cut because me and you are sitting up here talking about it's a positive step forward if Bryce Young gets 3,500 yards and 20 touchdowns. And here we have Justin Fields, who hasn't even cracked 3,000 yet. He's cracked 1,000 rushing yards, though. So, I mean, there's that. But, you know, if he's in this business to be a Cordell Stewart or something, then, you know, he's in the right place. But yeah, man. He got to get that passing game together to back up that confidence that he's showing.
I agree, and look, I'm rooting for Justin Fields. You know, I actually like the
Yeah,
kid. Um,
yeah.
but like you look at these ceiling comps for what Justin Fields should have to do. I'm looking at the passing numbers right now for Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray, multiple seasons of 3,700 passing yards and another season of 39, where he almost got to 4,000. He was like 30 yards off of 4,000. You also look at a guy like Lamar Jackson, who obviously rushing upside and has to develop and be a better passer. Last year,
Hmm.
Lamar Jackson threw for 3670. So, you know, you're getting to
Yeah,
that 3,500 plus. Even Lamar, he had multiple years where he wasn't cracking that 3,000, but he has 2 years of his career where he surpassed that. So that's kind of
yeah,
what has to happen for Justin Fields. You got to be able to be a 3,000 yard passer at minimum if you're going to still continue to add 1,000 on the ground. If you're not going to add 1,000 on the ground and you're going to float more in that 700 to 850 type of territory, you got to be a 3,500 yard passer. Like that's what you got to do if
yeah,
you want to be a successful quarterback in this league. And the only thing that I will say about Justin Fields, where I agree with you, this is the type of mindset you have to walk into this situation with because you didn't get the job done in Chicago. You got to put
no,
that chip on your shoulder. It does have to be, I am coming in here to compete and be the starting quarterback of this team. That's the mindset you have to do because if you don't have that mindset, you're never going to be that quarterback. You're never going to be successful in this situation. Now, I think there's a difference of having that mindset, coming in, practicing what you're preaching, showing up early, working in the facility all day, being the first guy in, last guy out, all of those things that we hear about, you know, being that hardworking type of quarterback to make sure that this happens. But also, you don't need to be out here selling people on the idea that you're a hard worker and selling people on the idea that you are capable of reaching untapped potential, blah, 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 with your words. Go do it with your actions. Show us that. Show us in preseason. You're going to get a lot of rep in preseason because they're probably going to be going with with Russell Wilson as the QB1 going into week one. But show us. Don't tell me. You've been telling me for 2 or 3 years now. Show me that you're that guy. And I think this is the perfect type of situation for him to do that because I trust Mike Tomlin. I trust everything that they do in Pittsburgh. They can develop guys. I think the best situation for Justin Fields still to this day is to spend the year learning from Russell Wilson. And if those rumors that you said, are true about Nick Foles in the quarterback room and in the classroom trying to learn that stuff, Justin, you better embrace this shit. Like, you better start learning from a guy like Russell Wilson, because Russell Wilson has been successful at this level. And actually, Russell Wilson is probably a pretty good comp for a ceiling type of comp to what you could be eventually long term. So take it in, learn from Russell Wilson, go out there, put in the work. I'm rooting for you to do it. Become the QB1, because when you are QB1, you're hella fun to watch on my fantasy football team. You're really fun to watch on the NFL field. It's exciting. Let's make it happen. I'm not necessarily sold on you out here trying to tell everybody to believe you. Show me.
I will say that. And I will also say that him saying the whole thing about his potential and stuff like that, that is a departure from how he's spoken in the past. Like, I can't recall him saying anything while he was in Chicago about how he has this, a limited untapped potential. That was just one of those things where you didn't have to tell anybody that. So, I mean, I feel like it's kind of a justification because he's still a human being. And
Mm-hmm.
let's face the facts. You got traded. And yeah, we could justify the amount of draft capital you got traded for. Wasn't, was low because you wanted to go to the Steelers and the Bears accommodated you. But at the same time, it had to feel like a slap in the face that nobody came strong with a first or second round pick. And that probably makes him feel like that's a reflection of how the rest of the NFL see. Because I'm telling you right now, if someone came with that type of draft capital, the Bears would not have accommodated Justin Fields.
Agreed.
That's just the bottom line. That's the bottom line. Like, they're probably coming in with fourth, fifth, or sixth round draft capital. And the Bears said, well, if we're going to get that, we might as well accommodate Justin. And I
Yep.
mean, it's as simple as that. So yeah, I could see him getting a little bit like trying to like pump himself up, like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I still have potential because the NFL basically told us that they don't think too much of your potential.
Yeah.
Um, and what I will also add is that Justin Fields does have a previous relationship with Russell Wilson, so I do think that mentor student relationship will be a little bit better than what it was with Foles. It's just kind of just funny a little bit because on one hand we had this story about Fields not listening to Foles, but we also had stories about Russell Wilson not necessarily being the greatest
Leader.
leader as well. So maybe that previous relationship they did have, Justin said he's known him since he was in Ohio State. Russell Wilson being what, from Wisconsin, if I'm not mistaken,
I
maybe
think
they
you're
had
right.
that relationship like that. Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe that'll help them actually be, a little more helpful to each other in the quarterback room.
Yeah. And actually, it's NC State is what I'm seeing. I just Googled it. It says NC State.
I feel
Oh,
like he went to Wisconsin.
before transferring to Wisconsin. You're right. You're right.
Okay.
Yep. So there we go. But yeah, man, I mean, I agree. Like I said, I'm rooting for the kid. I think he is a very interesting dynasty asset at the moment, because we all see it. We see the untapped potential. We see the ceiling. We see what Justin Fields can do when he is a starting quarterback. It's just a matter of consistency, development, growth, and turning into that at the NFL level, because this is one of those few instances where we talk about it all the time on this show, where fantasy football and real life have a disconnect. And this is one of those moments where he is so damn good in fantasy football, but he's pretty mediocre in the NFL at the moment. Let's see those things kind of get closer to each other. And we'll see, man. But I'm rooting for him. He's an interesting asset, like I said, because he is being valued right now on Keep Trade Cut is the QB 28, but it seems like every league that you're in, that is not the case, because the people who have him and are holding him as QB 28, they do not value him that way. They will not sell you Justin Fields at that price. So it seems like his value is kind of hidden there. We don't really know what it is. It's kind of in the eye of the beholder, and that's why I say he's an interesting asset, but definitely somebody I'm keeping my eye on and rooting for, just to see what he can do in Pittsburgh, because I think if he was the starting quarterback in Pittsburgh long term, 2025 and beyond, he'd be a pretty damn good quarterback in that division, or could
I
be.
think so, and I would be excited to see it, honestly.
Who
And I
who
still root for him. I still got a couple Justin Fields jerseys. So
who wouldn't want to watch Lamar Jackson and Justin Fields compete for a division championship 2 times a year?
man, Burrow. I mean, only one I wouldn't be excited for is Watson. Uh, he just doesn't light the fire for me anymore, like he did when he was in Houston. Maybe he could come back to that this season,
Mm,
but yeah, I usually only think about three guys when I think about that division.
yeah. But all right, man, that's it. Those are 7 headlines, storylines that we thought were interesting from the first week of OTAs. I think what we're going to do here, War, is we're going to do our trade show again next week. We've just kind of turned that into a bi-weekly thing or a bi-monthly thing, sorry. And then we'll do that next week. And then after that, we'll do one more episode. I'm going to be going on vacation in a couple weeks, but we'll do a part 2 to this because there's still 2 more weeks of OTAs. So we'll let those 2
Yeah.
weeks kind of happen. We'll let those storylines develop. And in 2 weeks, we'll do a part 2. We'll talk about like 10 more storylines from those 2 weeks of OTAs. And that will be all the drama, the news, all of the good stuff that we need out of our OTA period here for the NFL season. So, with that being said, if you guys are watching this episode, you enjoyed the episode, and you want more of it, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, do those 2 things for us. They are the best ways to support this show and further support this show in the future. Also, if there's anything on any of these topics that we talked about today that you guys disagree with, you agree with, you want to add to, start a conversation with us in the comments down below. Interested to see your guys' thoughts on these topics. And last but not least, go join our Discord. We do have a free Discord linked in the description. I'm helping you guys with dynasty teams, redraft teams, best ball teams, trades, waivers, mock drafts, anything you guys need, trades. I said trades, whatever. I'm helping you with all that stuff in the Discord. So go join that Discord. It's free to join. There is no risk in doing that. And if you want to check out some additional content from War, maybe you guys are fantasy football fans, but also like the WWE or professional wrestling, go follow War. War, where can they find you at?
You can find me over on the YouTube channel, The Crimson Mask Show. We're working on getting some stuff put out together. We're working on some things, fine tuning some things. There's a lot of wrestling going on. We're kind of trying to pick our spots over there. We're going to drop a video. I'm trying to determine if I want to drop a video today or I want to drop one tomorrow after Double or Nothing for AEW. So we'll see. But please, 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 if you see this, like, subscribe over on the channel, The Crimson Mask Pro Wrestling with an Attitude.
There you go, guys. So that is everything. We will see you guys next week for a Dynasty Trade Show. Lots of content coming on the channel this week as usual, but Dynasty Trade Show for Let's Talk Dynasty next week. Until then, though, we'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.